Kange Lude, Jimny Dender, Nidra Namda Rapsarave, Jinye Dungun, Chijin Nije Tugra Levonzen, Kunda Sebe Turamar, Muntam Dunge Chizeve, Rosoi Gunlai Puja Dars, Yenlai Juju Yonden Song. Chödrak chödrak nyamon nyelon leje chakdron chonze chen mare muzra dumra nyug chenye chenze rajenam dene tajen sajö tarsen yönden lüzo jase tuku Chödrak chödon chönyi jent Dale mezen jambe yon lai du Zedene cheche chenra vezre che Dale demo men barasrane Kadan denje yon loi tokpa ye Lo de potbe non wa zal du Tamke Duji Jeri Sujon, Yenjimudu, Duche Bonjamba, Sergelambo, Tavra Jebeku, Shagje Jebe, Shavla Shaje, Jamia Shana Duje, Jenreze, Sayin, Borjavanam, Brasere, Namgan, Boshamba Kundozon, Neve, Session Jella, Shaje, Serap Kundu, Sije Tanyela, Tamke Sam Shagi Yong Shen, Shangjumin, Lamken Karmapa, Meje, Tepe Jive Tuge tu Lasso, Tene, Tandro, Namkan Yambe Simpian Tamje La, Pinch Tatune, Jimaron, Yambe Gunu, Shangchuke, Semdan, Devetene, Tambechu, Seronang.
So please pay attention to your mindset at the beginning of the lecture, so that you correct your mindset if necessary in terms of it, that is to say, the mindset being concerned with just benefiting all sentient beings in number as vast as the sky. In this way, generate the body-mind.
Da 가상 교체네 마쇼용데 가상 쟁인 총축 남도 체수들라 된신 주여변 나네 다들인 된신 고바 delatu bare.
Now, the section we're going through is made up of 10 verses, where the author sets forth 9 methods in terms of counteracting undesirable situations and circumstances, turning them into an asset on the path to enlightenment. And the entire section explains thus how a practitioner overcomes various unfavorable situations, turn these situations into assets by way of which progress is made as to developing and cultivating the body-mind.
딱 그반데 가르쳐도서나 랑기 공초봉고의 지당 인게 ronde tøjona de lamdu chesu dit denkido.
And from among the 10 methods, we've come to number 9, which concerns the 20th of the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. And it's about the following, namely advice in terms of controlling one's anger and how, if and when one has anger towards one or many other individuals, how one can overcome this, how one can convert that anger felt towards others to something constructive, something that makes for progress in terms of cultivating the body mind.
Teche yonde tate tsasik chikang te chikang de nyushtan badre do
Lare.
Ranki shedong dao matul na shirur dao tulshin pewarin yuru songare. Tesong yonde penna ngaran nangi shedong de chik matul na rangi shedong de matul wache tanga pinde drache chongse pindele kate chicha mindele kate chicha dena katu yang drate segmare songare.
So, to begin with, the author says the following. Or he rather, to begin with, refers to personal anger, anger within, which, if it remains uncontrolled, if not counteracted, then thoughts of taking revenge with respect to those who have harmed one will surface, and the whole thing snowballs into, the situation snowballs into a conflict. And this will happen again and again and again unless the practitioner focuses on controlling his own anger, the anger he feels within, pointing to that this is the true enemy, the anger within.
Dan de lan deven on the page somsha penan deres ngazo chanji dikin bushio ba.
What are they called?
Rejong mungo
Yeah.
Simple chanji sekindo. Beba sekiden rejong.
Beba, yeah. Oh dear, I've forgotten the name in English. In ancient times, people with blood-related problems were treated as follows. There is a larger, well, it's not really an insect, but a small animal who sucks your blood, attaches itself to your skin, bites in and feeds off the blood of your bloodstream. In this way, people were bloodlet, as it was called, and supposedly bad blood was taken out of the bloodstream, and that would help the ill person. That was the thought behind it. It's no longer practiced, but it was in ancient days. I can't remember the name of this animal in English. Oh dear.
Leech.
Ah, it's a leech, yes. Thank you.
Penna leech dawuchi shedong de reche. Leech tege so jeyon de tsikpasa kotsu nyu tumbu top shota. Tumbu lere?
Yigit.
Oh, okay.
Leech de kan du shigre rangi shedangre.
Yeah.
Tene?
Leech shedang ma de. Leech sengente dawon dawche.
Oh, drawon dawche.
Que so jev de ron shedong long.
Såg jag på det ngarangi shedang dandra?
Mare.
Ona?
Que ngala so jev de ngatsik basa.
Tene?
Ko meba so yak tantala. Ko tumbu yel tubda. Ko lichi je chan.
Okay. The name of this animal is leech. Now, once a leech has put his teeth into your skin, he starts then to suck your blood. And you may, or you would presumably, conceive of the leech as something that you need to remove. So a being one can place in the category we call enemy. Once it has sunk its teeth into your skin, it starts sucking your blood. And this may make you upset, even angry. And you proceed to remove and destroy the leech. Having ripped it off your leg, they very often attach to the legs. You may cut it up in 4 pieces, let's say, in order to destroy the animal because of your upset and anger with it. Thing is, this animal survives this, and each of the 4 pieces turns into yet another leech. So you've actually then enhanced the number of the population in that area. And this is then an example used in the commentary to the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva to show how, when you view another being as an enemy and react with anger and upset, you haven't controlled or your anger within, your anger and upset takes over, and you cut up this little animal into 4 pieces. Well, you haven't really achieved what you wanted to achieve, namely to destroy the animal in question. You have rather contributed to a large number of leeches in that local area. So this is an example which illustrates what happens when one doesn't try to get a grip on one's own anger. Instead, one's own anger becomes a driving force in terms of harming others, retaliating and inflicting harm upon others. So the actual enemy is one's own anger, not the object of one's anger.
Did some de masse rangi shedong de shuk cher song bayina ryan nyo yong kre song.
And if anger and hatred escalates and go out of control, that may even cause one's own death. Such is the force of anger and hatred that's escalated to a very high level.
Taga na shinge rangi shedong de machamba che Shedong ge je rang song de bi na.
Shedang ge jela.
Shedong ge je de ten. Ti ten tam mel dra sen ba che kang ga che gu ba kha tang ga ti che gin je song de bi na. Charang ge sem de la ji pe kal ba ra. Ji pe tem ra kha tu yang thog ma re song.
Furthermore, or again, anger is one's own enemy because when consumed by anger and hatred, expressing that in perhaps verbal abuse, one shouts and screams at someone, or one may inflict physical harm, attacking the person. While consumed by anger and hatred, one is not in a state of mind that one could say is comfortable and one of happiness, rather the opposite. So when consumed by anger, or the person who is consumed by anger suffers from the anger he's consumed by, his own anger, because it's not a very pleasurable or comfortable mindset, that of anger and hatred.
Then said de la yina da mang roya chi tang sem ma chi wa sa ya chi,
and it contributes to nothing but unhappiness and people viewing one as an enemy of sorts, because one is such an unpleasant person simply.
Then it jawa jeman am su yang shedong gleg number member tene namena tene nyalwe ne su che yunten tene da mang run roye what the chagre.
And in future lives, one may, in consequence of acts of anger and hatred, take rebirth in lower existences, such as the hellish existences, and the surroundings as to one's place of rebirth. There one will, in consequence of those actions, originating with one's own anger and hatred, meet with large numbers of enemies, people who have turned against one as an effect of one's own previous actions. That's how the karmic consequence may manifest.
Oh yeah, that you are Jemal Son Beton King be on the Tana Yang. Then those 10 de la Son of Tana, Shedon the Tene, Mazo Sang Deji of Tankirova. Shedon then Deji Tobachi, Young Sarve, Son of Tantan game.
Now, if one considers individuals who do not perhaps know of cause and effect in the context of the law of karma, just people in the world who have no knowledge of that perspective, but who are people who perhaps frequently their minds are filled with anger or dislike towards others and the like. Now, that person is usually never a happy person. Today, one speaks of people who have anger management problems, as it were. Now, these are individuals who are not capable of getting a grip on their own anger. They act out their anger when anger arises, failing to stop themselves from doing just that. And as was just pointed out, people who are frequently plagued by this specific afflictive obscuring state that we call anger, hatred, dislike for others, contempt for others. There's a wide range of perspectives. These people are not happy people, because as was pointed out, a person of this mindset experiences a mindset that entails no pleasure or happiness, even though that's what one strives for usually. The driving force in life is usually not the driving force, but the driving force in terms of what one wants is in life is about wanting happiness. And if one takes a look at oneself, if one is this sort of person, well, everyone becomes filled with anger at one point or another. One should then take a step back and think of what's occurring, and one may come to realize that happiness cannot be obtained by way of enacting anger and the like. Rather the opposite, one will lead a life of unhappiness if if one fails to get a grip on one's own anger.
대간나 신게 로벤 쳔보 전덕게 송아래.
라서
셰동 롱데드 롱킹기 미들직드 당 베주양 메두가 샤도 그래서 칸이양 담미님바 라병 그래서
Chödrak said the following: a person filled with anger, in terms of his appearance, even looks unpleasant. You sort of take a step back because the physical expression is one of unpleasantness, and unpleasant words will issue from the mouth of that person. So a person filled with anger is not a person others would like to socialize with or be with even.
대간나 신게 제부 담바 속이 쥐바당 미야랍 쥐바 데 강갈로 그래 제버리 쥐인지 차온 그래.
And anger makes for deterioration in the person's behavior. And anger removes the mindset from wanting to be a person of good morals who does the right thing in difficult situations, and the person removes himself from perhaps even thinking about the good examples of others, saints, holy men, and the like, who through their life examples have clearly demonstrated that anger is not an asset, rather the opposite.
대간나 신게 최당 직딩게 야랍 템루 가리나 디롱들때 미시가 차로 그래서.
And in the end, this angry person, or a person of an angry disposition, will simply lose it in terms of he or she will forget what a proper behavior is in terms of how one treats others. There is a social code of ethics, as it were, that everyone does agree upon in terms of how one treats other people. That will be forgotten because of one's own anger if the anger remains uncontrolled. And all these shortcomings or faults that have been listed are the shortcomings and faults of the angry person, him or herself. It's not as if it's the fault of others. So one needs to consider that too, that one is responsible for one's own anger and what that, or the consequences, and the consequences of enacting one's own anger. One can't blame others for one's angry behavior, one's angry words directed towards others, and so on. So, having realized this, one should then find out how to remedy one's own anger. And look for methods to overcome anger. That's why the author here says, I will read out the content of the entire verse. When the inner enemy, one's own anger, remains uncontrolled, seeking to subdue outer enemies only makes more of them. Therefore, and here the author sets forth the method for overcoming anger. Therefore, in terms of the practitioner having understood that anger and its shortcomings are his own, the author then gives the following advice. Therefore, to tame your own mind stream with the forces of loving kindness and compassion is the practice of a bodhisattva. So, what is the perspective loving kindness focuses upon? Well, loving kindness, as explained in the context of the path of a bodhisattva, is concerned with the happiness and welfare of others. So when the practitioner, for example, encounters someone in good circumstances of happiness, the practitioner being someone whose mind to some extent has incorporated loving kindness for others, would rejoice in the good circumstances of the other individual, and the aspiration that those good circumstances may remain in terms of that person would surface. So loving kindness is concerned with others being in good circumstances and that the good circumstances last.
콘수에 대지라 예수랑 제거래 송.
Trubji yo mari song didi.
Trubji.
Trugo ya kan yo re di.
자돌 때는 죽으러와.
Lasso. So
무슨
A
죽되그래. 몽보.
a practitioner who is truly concerned with that others have good circumstances and that the good circumstances remain with these other individuals would not, when encountering others in good circumstances, react with jealousy. Jealousy is an afflictive, obscuring state which upsets the mind. So Shantideva here gave the advice that a practitioner who truly fosters loving kindness must be mindful of that when he or she encounters others in circumstances of happiness. That practitioner must be mindful of not suppressing rejoicing in the good circumstances, but instead becoming jealous. Because then, evidently, this practitioner has failed to proper kindness. Loving kindness is not at hand in the mindset of this practitioner who reacts with jealousy.
pen 미치글라 연팀 분섬 속아진도나 델라 가와 제시롱체 쭉 분섬 속아진도나 가와 제시롱체 펜절 분섬 속아진도나 텐솔 가와 제시롱체다 랑 sem양 샤동 공원으로 말 셈지 샷해요.
A person who properly has been able to, or who properly cultivates loving kindness, as explained in the context of the path of a Bodhisattva, is a person who, when encountering someone who has achieved a very high level of good qualities in terms of education, profession, whatever it may be, or a person of a very pleasant appearance, in good health, or a person of great wealth, if the practitioner, when encountering people in those circumstances, reacts with rejoicing in their good circumstances, wanting those good circumstances to remain and last, then that person has had success in terms of fostering loving kindness for others. When reacting with jealousy, then the whole thing is then one's efforts have failed. Simply. Or rather, one has failed in one's efforts to foster and cultivate loving kindness for others. Imagine the following situation. You find yourself in a very pleasant place. Wild flowers grow. There is the display of wild flowers in all sorts of colors. There is a beautiful lake. There are birds chirping, and so on and so forth. Ask yourself the question, how would you feel in that place? Probably very comfortable, and it would be very pleasant. That's how your mindset should react. It's an example of the state of your mindset in terms of encountering other in good circumstances and wanting them to remain in those circumstances, wanting them to remain happy. That's a mindset of loving kindness.
Penna chilena maso sammachi tangda. Dewachingi shingi kepe yuanten samji mishaba deshingi doyi nonto songudowa. Des songyaya de karir esena semde chungma shobi tandarawa. Shambe sem gyudi
Now, in the sutra, which sets forth the circumstances of the land of Sukhavati, Devachen, there are innumerable descriptions of pleasant circumstances, which would mean that those living there would be individuals of a very happy frame of mind. Now, all these one can understand as a metaphor for a mindset of loving kindness, because those who inhabit the land of Sukhavati are individuals who have fostered loving kindness to the extent where loving kindness is the norm of their mindset. So it's not entirely to be understood as these descriptions, as descriptions of some outer place with the name Sukhavati where you live. It's a metaphor for the mindset of those at that level, those who have properly cultivated the body mind to the point where their mindset is one of loving kindness.
Pernange hepa sirige nambajen de shambe rangin tu churna Dewachingi shingi yuanten heba de kanga tata dagaran nong tu.
Now, if a practitioner in this life achieves this, namely that loving kindness is the norm which rules or controls, as it were, figuratively speaking, the mindset, which is a stream of instances that are both vivid and knowing. If that is achieved in this life in consequence of having cultivated loving kindness, then that is the land of Sukhavati. The land of Sukhavati is not really to be understood as a place that has a geographical location somewhere which one travels to, as it were.
Tindege sambe semke nge semda wangdu chi jurtumna tak takben hungwa sangi sharchogro.
And at that point, what is referred to as pure vision happens in consequence of having accomplished loving kindness to the extent where the mindset is made up of loving kindness, as it were, and other enlightening qualities. In consequence of that, so-called pure vision happens. Nangwa de la kandishi kogo windu.
Nangma te penangala sambat harsimbaji sono sutungna yang takwachimato kyong pungboji tsuri marwa.
You see, when the mindset is a mindset of just loving kindness, anger is eradicated, as it were, then the person or the practitioner who achieves this will, when encountering other individuals. Or this practitioner's perception of others is the kind of perception which sees good in others. It's a perceptual or cognitive process which sees nothing but good qualities in others. Therefore, a practitioner needs to tame his own mind stream with the forces of loving kindness and compassion. Then there is compassion in the context of the path of a Bodhisattva, which is concerned with the suffering of others. For example, if you're attacked by another person, the Bodhisattva of compassion would react with feeling sorry for you, because he knows that you're plagued by your own anger and that you're in a state of suffering. So his reaction to you attacking him in one way or the other is one of compassion for you. So his perception of a person who attacks him is very different from the perception of the same, but in the context of a regular person in the world. Jukpa de la long, mi de la malong.
Mi de long ju amare chever. Mi de ko shedong tene ka me re chever. Zert jukpa te gis zertangi yar mat ku shedong tengan zertangi yamar.
Shantideva gave the following advice in terms of being attacked by someone else who perhaps charge at you with a large wooden stick and hits you hard over your head. What do you do? Well, Shantideva said, you think of the fact that the person who attacks you is helpless because his own anger rules him. He's not himself. And in fact, it is the wooden stick that makes for the pain when you're hit by it. It's not the person. The stick hurt you. That's how you should think. Uh-huh. So you separate the components of the situation in this way in order to be able to deal with this situation in a constructive manner, rather than as usual in the world, which is destructive rather.
Oh, tendres chene paloden ninja jesap chene tene ninji makunte tongda rang xie yung den dol yung kore.
So in this way one makes use of the forces of loving kindness and compassion in various situations like the ones just described, in order to practice or in order to do what a true Bodhisattva does in those circumstances.
다 텐데스 chen 동보 먼저 삼바던 ninje를 로데 감고 그래. 시 감죽난다 라린도 따르와 레벨 그래.
To begin with, one needs to familiarize oneself with loving kindness and compassion by way of the many methods available to do so. And once one is familiar with these ways of thinking that originate with loving kindness and compassion, then one can perhaps put that into practice into different situations. Examples were given.
Tinte rang nang shedong singen dultumna shi ran duriela kake gog mare song. Zunju che dang shil da yo mare che.
If one controls or if one is able to do away with the inner enemy, one's own anger, then one won't encounter enemies.
La so tene ta chubate re sholokani chachik bat.
Now we've come to point number 10 in this list of 10 points or situations where one makes use of various methods in order to make the situation constructive on the path to enlightenment.
Tindu Tandi heading the Masona Karsung or Sana Desha Jeve Yulla Himbapung Su Song.
And here it's about giving up craving for and attachment to objects of desire.
Tindu Tati Sholokate Depe Yunten Lense Chudondra Chitsum Jejin Sekpar Pelwar Jurus Depe Yunten Denso Pena Chachutung Deva the Chikpa Chikjangre Songre.
And to begin with, Tome Sangpo says that desire is like drinking salt water. The more you indulge, the more craving increases.
Tati Chayon de Penna Depe Yunten Sen Depa Skete Yulla Shenpatala Segura Seking Shenpatala.
Desire is a mindset where the mind craves for objects of desire.
De pe yunten sikente tan de yuntente de pe yulla yunten kan yorsna pena migi yurtu zum zeba na yulu danyamba na yulu trishamba tene chela roshamba lula rejan jambala so wangpo susu joyutu churunde ti ji yakore sambe log chenmat shugu yare chebre.
So this mindset sees the quality of pleasantness in various objects of desire, You have visual objects that have a pleasant appearance and therefore are desired. You have pleasant sound, pleasant smells, pleasant tastes, and pleasant tactile sensations in connection with various objects of desire in the context of the 5 sense perceptions.
단 대체에 코라 통마메 뒤진에 나 감배 버차되게 내절라 색밭 군도 예용도 와 내와도 깨직 말에 yar로에 진짜래
디잉을 나가는 소소
뺐나 녜처럼 통마메 뒤진에 색밭을 감타셔 로기 아래 마도 너희게 대화선 게 깨직 말 한신지
드용 코란 랑게
랑테 yar로 와 얘네야 깨직 하신인데 세배 참지 야랑데 되네
나치 니 세배 참 jorne 라서
삭바던 제베 대완들 진짜 제세든 로 그래 정말.
So in terms of all of us who've taken rebirth in a worldly existence in this life as human beings and all other sentient beings in all different types of existence that there are. What happens here in the context of desire is that worldly individuals have taken rebirth in various existences since time immemorial. And throughout these innumerable existences, beings have familiarized themselves, as it were, to a higher and higher and higher degree of craving for that which they see as pleasurable, various objects of desire. And the habit of doing that is so ingrained in consequence of it being a habit that's been cultivated throughout innumerable lifetimes, that the being fails to see what is in fact the case. A situation of an individual in contact with an object of desire, if one desiccates the components of the situation, the object of desire and the individual and his craving for it, then both the object and the mindset which craves it are impermanent to the extent where both are in a process of constant change. The object in question is made up of innumerable subtle material particles where there is constant change happening, so subtle that it's not visible to the naked eye, and the craving for it, that mindset, is made up of a series of vivid and knowing instances colored by craving for the object at hand. And the habit of craving is so ingrained that the individual is oblivious to the fact that both object and his own mindset are of a fleeting nature. There is nothing with respect to either the object or the mindset that would make for lasting pleasure when indulging with the object of desire. The worldly individual is completely oblivious to this and takes the view that if I obtain this thing, whatever it may be, the object of desire, then I will be happy. So this is the effect of craving, that mindset. The effect being that of the fact that one is completely oblivious to the fact that craving will never result in permanent pleasure or happiness because nothing lasts. The object of desire is made up essentially of a fleeting nature, and so is my sensation of it as pleasurable.
Perna roa doyen zage the kanteji charu du sida. Kala himbu chitanda sana. Ko dene kana ya san so jebne mambi bata ko toadi echarwa.
Think of a person who to a very great extent enjoys good food, and that person being served a delicious meal, now he eats the food, puts it in his mouth, chews it, it goes into the stomach. Well, the pleasurable taste is gone. Then another piece of the food is chewed, swallowed, and so on. And by the end of the meal, the object of desire, which this person has a craving for, no longer produces a pleasurable experience. It's gone. It's of a the whole situation, the food, the mindset which craves the food, being the main components, and the taste buds by way of which a pleasurable sensation is experienced, it's all not there anymore because the food has been consumed and is now being digested in the stomach. So, lasting pleasure in the context of objects of desire is simply not possible.
Teni yenna yang ta drin sawat gen rig ma song yang sanyin thobu.
However, this person who is very into good food will look forward to his next good meal, and so he becomes more and more habituated to thinking, I want this, when he sees good food. So to the extent where he craves good food even when he doesn't have it, perhaps. This is how craving works. The more you expose yourself to the things you crave, the worse the craving gets.
Perna sanji chamden deke korangi yap dan jalva kabla yapsen jarben dosen ki song yorba ndos songare tin nang songbre yabne pernan zambir ninge chunde tanga jamsun on rogdo ga songare yine jatsu dan jigson segme do was kase yena ko ngamgyum do was
Det kämpar i Peru.
ja ngaran son döenda kempa singen tende chirada songare.
Now, Buddha Shakyamuni, at one point, when he for the first time met with his father after his enlightenment, gave advice to his father, recorded in a sutra named Father and Son Meeting. Again, I suppose one could add. Here the Buddha Shakyamuni gave the following example to his father in an effort to explain craving to him, craving and the habit of craving. He said, "Father, don't you agree with me that all the waters that flow in the rivers and other bodies of water throughout our world end up in the ocean, isn't it?" His father presumably answered yes. "Isn't it also the case," Buddha Shakyamuni said, continuing, that the ocean never says, "No, thank you, I don't want any more water." The more it gets, the better type of the idea on the part of the ocean. The ocean never says no to additional water, as it were. This is how craving works, the Buddha explained to his father. Craving for objects of desire.
Therefore,
the author says here in the 37 practices, letting go immediately of whatever makes attachment arise is the practice of a bodhisattva.
Testen di songyong tu penanga ngopo kante jil shencha je sona di ngopo shencha je yulte lamsang meba zo tu songade pai yana jimbatang yana chepa pur kari ina meba ji songade ti chedang pongtu byongure songade.
Therefore, or for the reasons that have been listed and explained somewhat, it's important to make efforts to eradicate craving or the habit of craving. So whenever there is attachment for something that one has happened upon, as it were, let go of craving for it and instead perhaps give that thing away to someone in an act of generosity or make an offering of it. There are many things that one can do that would be helpful in terms of reducing craving.
And
this is the practice of a bodhisattva. Or to do so is the practice of a bodhisattva. And if one looks at how the Buddha explained attachment for things and how to give it up in various lectures or discourses of his, recorded in writing in the sutras, in the Buddhist sutras, Khenpo Rinpoche says one could perhaps divide his various advice into 3 categories.
대 당고대 간대 송도 세나 배 송아래 배나 공바지를 매쇼 존하 송아래.
Now, if a house is on fire,
쇼르종은 매쇼사들라 땀만두 거체.
do not just observe the fire as it consumes the house.
되네. 다 니빠의 자당 신당 들라 여대바도 파유고래 제버래.
Start to do something to prevent the fire from spreading. If the house is surrounded by trees, plants and the like, one should cut those down and remove them.
대전도 안전 넣으셔 제쇼나 단단 넣으셔 제대요로와 제율 대 람상뽕 우습도 송아시 단다 내내 송.
So this is an example which illustrates what was just said, namely what a practicing Bodhisattva does when attachment arises for something. Try to give up that attachment for the thing in question immediately, as it were, instead of possessing it. One gives it away, one may make an offering of it, and so on and so forth. There are many solutions here, by way of which attachment to the thing in question can be counteracted. And that's advice for a beginner practitioner. This is how a beginner goes about counteracting his attachment for things. Then there is the second of the 3 categories, which is about a more contemplative approach, where one contemplates the impermanent nature of one's objects of desire, and with respect to some objects of desire, it may be that one goes, or that one looks into what the object of desire is made up of. If one takes the example of another human being, and for example being attracted to another person, consider for example that the body of this person is like a sack filled with impure substances. The body is covered by skin, that's the sack, and within the body you have blood, you have lymph, you have waste stored in the intestines, there is waste in the urine bladder, and so on and so forth. So the body of someone can be actually viewed in this manner, thus counteracting desire for catching the attraction of and interacting physically with this person, perhaps.
나서 다디 인체되게 던진 주보되게
Sumpa sumaso.
주마송
Sumaso. Deni paredo. Mi takpada mi tsangwa deni.
sam바테 데바 제율테 란진지 좀 누다면도 시다 담버 트빙을 찍장 내버려.
Then there is
the
3rd category of advice or instructions, which are about enabling a practitioner to begin with, intellectually grasp that objects of desire are not real. They are empty of a real reality. And in this way counteract attachment for them.
That tendegi shologachu song shologachu de le thangbo be kongsa tsu jingin tod papdu lamjin yamne shesu te song.
So that ends this specific part of the text, the 10 verses where instructions and advice are set forth in terms of how a beginner practitioner counteracts unfavorable conditions when those are met with, and convert, by way of the advice and the instructions, these situations to assets which result in progress on the path of a bodhisattva.
Di sholoka chubotela de chenambe somnachinende tangna ma theda jase shongchup sembe chopa sammase chopa da yenda yinrawa
Dare
chita meta misichige nangla misichetan le yaksho ge michi zongro dechu kolto zalor kamtumna.
Khenpo Rinpoche says that it would be good if you give careful thought and consideration to the advice given, and that you try to practice these instructions. Designed to make for progress in the context of beginner practitioners, beginner bodhisattvas. Now, if you put this into a wider context, the advice and the instructions given would be valuable for people in the world too, people who do not follow the path of a bodhisattva or any other spiritual approach. Because by way of these advice and instructions, or rather, when the advice and instructions given are practiced, that would, or put into practice rather, that would make for the person who does this becoming or turning into a good person, a decent person.
Penangaranso Teshin Lamda Shunkin Yinsin then Delhi Brexina and Deranwa. Then was chair kind.
Very often people ask, what should I do on a daily basis? There is this expression very common in Western Buddhist centers, daily practice. It's almost like a mantra. Daily practice, what is my daily practice? Which is good to think of. That's not the point, but this question appears to take up a lot of people's time in terms of what they should do on a daily basis. Well, Khenpo Rinpoche says, what has been explained throughout these 10 verses are or is an explanation of what a good or constructive daily practice would involve. In particular for individuals who have entered the path of Mahayana Buddhism.
When a practice de Jänner Dumbatishan de Yamanane ta cancer go Flandra or Lapa Yishes and Matches, Joshes, Tendage gum there. Tendage which is the Koguduva, then Marada. So what in Denzore?
Very often.
Someone should send the Khenpo.
It seems that with daily practice, people refer to a specific recitation or a specific visualization involving a yidam with X amount of arms, legs, and whatnot. The
colorful.
A very colorful visualization, one would say. Very often it seems people are preoccupied with that and that only being a so-called daily practice. Well, in terms of someone who has entered the path of a bodhisattva, the main feature would be cultivating the body mind and making that your mindset.
That both mind ngal let up la ngaran so let thongbo pat khang go yorsana thande nyamne tin so thongbo sem kham chukna da.
So as beginners, we start out with familiarizing ourselves with the various perspectives of the body mind.
Tenengone ngendam bachindan den so kamnen dam bachindan bayena ta teaching nyamne chagre plaji gambayena teaching nyamne.
With that as one's basis, one does specific recitations, colorful visualizations, and the like. The basis must not be forgotten.
Lasso, tene Tawanda Yanane, Lenjagi is Kazan Shuyin, that drop at Jänner.
Khenpo Rinpoche says at the end of the last lecture, you were invited to ask questions. Apparently, it's been reported by the secretary of Karma Sampling, no questions have been sent to the email address of Karma Sampling in Vienna. Therefore, we will end here for today. However, Khenpo Rinpoche invites you again to contact Karma Sampling by email if you have questions, and there will be a time slot given for answering those at the end of the next lecture.
Sunam de tam jezban tam ne yebe danam pamchet jegana je balap trubai sigbe chotlen do war